Hello, and welcome to the fourth grade, fifth 6 weeks preview. I'm Sonia Burrow, the writing specialist here in HEB. I'm going to be walking you through your writing curriculum for the fifth 6 weeks. We'll be covering Patterns of Power, your grammar piece for this 6 weeks, a test prep unit that you'll be working on to prepare for STAR, some other things you can do preparing for STAR writing, your poetry unit, and then some supports that are being put in place. In your grammar, the following pieces are what you're going to be covering to help support students as they move towards that STAR test. Superlative adjectives, adverbs, prepositions twice, so you're going to cover that for 2 weeks, and commas in a series. And when you look at that, you'll notice that the commas in a series is a third grade TEK that we are covering. And the reason why we are doing that is students tend to struggle with this concept when they're looking at sentences and sentence structures and understanding where those commas go. So we want to make sure we're supporting students moving forward towards the test. So when we look at patterns of power, we want to make sure that we are developing a lesson plan. Make sure your questions help students move towards that focus phrase. When you look at your curriculum, you see the focus phrase is given to you on that front page after you open the Rainbow YAG and get into your curriculum. Make sure that those questions help support students as they move towards it. If they're still struggling with those questions and notices that they should have, we want to make sure that we are being very strategic in how we talk to students about those sentences. On our compare day, we want to make sure that the students see the grammar rule applied in multiple sentences with a similar pattern so that they understand how that rule applies. And we want to give them on the imitation day another sentence, a more advanced sentence that continues to support that grammar rule. So knowing your students this far in the year, think about ways that you can really support them and help them understand that grammar rule with the imitation sentence that you create in advance, and show them and make sure that your thinking is you're voicing your thinking as you're working through that process with your kids, because that's super helpful to them. They really need to hear how other writers think as they work through a system. So as you're looking at the sentence and thinking about how you would write it, just voice those thoughts with the kids. Even though you already have created that sentence, that will help them along the way. Hopefully, when the students are done writing their own imitation sentence, there's a chance for them to share with either a group or with the class, because the more examples that they see of good grammar being used in different sentence structures, the more they get to put that into their own personal lexile and understand, oh, I can do it this way or this way or this way. And they start to own those different structures and become better writers. And then, of course, edit and apply. We want to use a consistent method to help students apply their new learning to both their writing and the POP lessons. This is why we use Editor's Eyes. I'm sure there are many ways to do it, but we want to make sure that the kids are using a method that is very strategic and allows them to analyze a sentence in such a way that they can start to see, okay, my first thing is just to read my sentence to make sure I understand it. And then I'm going to look at my sentence for that capitalization. Where is that? Where should it be? Where should it not be? Okay, I get to the end mark, I have put that, I don't have a run on, I have one thought. And then, does it sound right? Like when I read it, does it sound correct? And this is, goes back to the reading fluency. Are they reading what they wrote, or are they reading what they think that they wrote? So reading it very carefully, and we know that that can really trip them up on STAR. So we want to make sure that they're reading through it and listening and see if they hear where there's a mistake. So they read through that for that usage, and then they look for commonly misspelled words and homophones, that sound right to your ear, but don't look right on the page because they're using the wrong word. And if all of that is correct, then they can dive deep into those commas, apostrophes, quotation marks, all of those extra special marks that the kids need to know, and they're really difficult, but if they know everything else about that sentence is correct, then they can just focus in on that. And the other thing is that when they're writing their own pieces, they don't have questions to follow to help them through that. So the more they're able to do that process through their own writing and really check it for each of those pieces in a consistent order, the more likely it is that they're going to make fewer mistakes in their own writing. We're not saying they're going to be perfect, but they're going to catch more mistakes if they always do it in the same order. The other thing is that there's no point in trying to check for commas and apostrophes and things like that if maybe two sentences need to be joined, or it needs to be a compound subject, or we need to put quotes in. Like, until we know all those other pieces, adding that other stuff in does not work. So we want to just really make sure that the kids understand that part of the process to help them be successful and feel secure in their understanding of grammar before they move in to taking that STAR test. We don't want them to go in unsure of how to do their work. We want to give them a very consistent method of that. So how are we going to use our writing curriculum? I know I cover this each time, but we want to make sure we're reading mini lessons ahead of time and prep materials. Make sure you have what you need in advance. Now you're moving into a task prep unit that was written for you last year, but I know that we went home and you guys did not actually get to spend time in it. So you'll want to look through some of that. Some of it you're going to look at and say it's very similar to Boxes and Bullets, Texas style, which it may be, and some of it may be new. So you'll want to kind of look through that in advance. Remember that your mini lessons are not about mastery, but about showing students a method and letting them try it out. Well, in your test prep unit, we're going to kind of go through that a little bit. You're going to see it's very strategic on getting kids ready for the test. Okay, so we don't really have time to sit on a single mini lesson for days. You're going to have to keep moving. So if you have students that are struggling, that's where you're going to want to pull them for small group, conferencing, things like that. Read through a bend at a time. Now that won't apply really to your test prep unit because it's one, big group of lessons. But when you do your poetry, it's 10 lessons, so you may want to do 5 and 5. This will kind of give you an overview of what you're covering with your students and how they work together. You want to make sure you really look at your timeline, especially when we have the test coming up. And I know you guys all know that. So in the 5th 6 weeks, you have 26 instructional days and we have 24 days of instructional material. So you do have a little bit of give on that, but we really want to make sure that we are ready for the test on the test day. And you will be teaching specific strategies over the course of the year. So as you teach them, make sure you hang those charts up and help to support the students. And then they become your silent teachers when you're working with other students. So your editor's eyes should be hanging up. Your focus phrases should be hanging up. Any charts you make for your test prep unit, or if you have charts that you had made for Boxes and Bullets that you want to keep up because they really support what we're doing next, you'll want to have those and have the kids referring to them. The more you do that, the more likely it is the students will refer to them mentally on a test. So if I've always got my my introductory to dependent clauses poster up in the same spot, and whenever we cover that and we're talking about why that comma goes there, I point to that chart and I refer to that chart. When we have our test and we have to cover up that chart, the kids still will look in that direction to mentally remember what does it say, what did she say about that. So those things are designed to help the students later on. So make sure that those posters, if possible, I know that there's always a lot, if they can kind of hang in the same spots in your room, it will help the kids when they get to the test. They kind of look at that wall or look at that piece and say, oh, she always said the blah, blah, blah. So obviously you can't always do that, but the more you can do that, that will just help the kids tremendously. Notice the process you're cycling through with the students. Just kind of remind them, where are we in this process? What are we doing today? Are we drafting? Are we revising? Are we editing? Are we rehearsing? And we rehearse almost every day in our writing when we do active engagement. If we can't say it, we can't write it. So we want to make sure that the kids are orally rehearsing, whether to a partner or to themselves. If they're doing Flipgrid, or if they're on a Google Meet with someone, or they're just turning and talking to someone, that step is so vital for them. And remember, a draft, a lot of them are going to be flash drafts, and we know when we get to the actual STAR test, they're going to have 4 hours, unless they have accommodations. So when we do this test prep unit, you're going to have to push the kids and say, it's okay. The state is looking for a good, solid example of your ability to write to this mode of writing. So this is what you have this amount of time. I need you to write it. And then, they're going to be going back over it, but they've got to get their writing muscles really moving so that they can get that done. Whether you're having them handwrite it, type it, handwrite it, then type it, however that's working in your class, okay? So the test prep unit we're going to look at here in just a minute, it reinforces that STAR expository writing uses boxes and bullets. So we have covered that multiple times this year, so it's going to reinforce that. So we're also going to do oral rehearsal. We're going to work on unpacking the prompt on multiple days, creating strong introductions, revisions for strong transitions, revision for strong details, checklists and rubrics. We're going to look at the STAR rubric this time, strength of the plan that they're using, making sure they're including mini stories in their papers, eliminating unnecessary information or details, a thoughtful conclusion, and then a celebration. So when you look at all of this, these are the things that when we look at their DBAs, we see that they might need more help with these different pieces. So we're going to look I'm going to scroll through and look at a few of those lessons with you that are embedded within your curriculum. Okay, so I just scanned all of these in so that I would have them in one form for you guys. We're just going to go through a few of them and know that these are embedded in your curriculum for you. So when we think about how are we going to get them ready at this point, we want to make sure that they understand that prompt, right? So this is your test prep unit for the writing piece. So our first objective, students will understand that writing to an expository prompt is the same method during boxes and bullets. So we are encouraging them to see the connection and use prior knowledge of what they've already done. So you're going to choose a prompt and take them through the process of generating ideas and focusing on that boxes and bullets. And then you're going to have them work with a partner to come up with 2 or 3 reasons. And look at it, it says oral rehearse, blank is blank because. Use ideas from the students' discussion. And then once you've done that, you're going to add this to your chart because you're doing this with them this time. Remind the students to make sure that their examples or reasons should be specific details and clearly prove their central idea. So they're going to oral rehearse, make sure they're pointing out to students who are extending their thinking or using good transitions because we want to encourage those things. And then you're going to link them out and you're going to say, now that students have oral rehearsed their essay, send them off to write their essay in no more than 15 minutes. And I know that that's a stretch for some. So, we really want them to try to flash draft. This is a flash draft, right? And what it says is your mid-workshop teach as you are a cheerleader, encourage them. So it's not a new process. They've been preparing for STAR. They should feel confident in their work. And so you're just going to cheerlead them through. You've got this, you can do this because you've already had them oral rehearse. So you want to make sure that you give them that 15 minutes. If you only give them 12 or 11, that's going to really make it hard for the kids, right? So having that timing down is really important for them. And when they're orally rehearsing, remember, they don't have to finish the whole oral rehearsal. It is like taking them up the long ladder up to the top of a diving board and not waiting for them to jump. You don't need to wait for them to jump. They're up at the top. They're going to do that piece of it, so we want to get them up the ladder, get them there, but we don't have to wait. So I know that sometimes people feel like it's rude to cut the kids off when they're having a good discussion, but no, we're just trying to jumpstart them into that process. So make sure that you don't let them linger on their active engagement and cut their time short. You're just going to really want to watch that clock for them. And then at the end, when you share, have students notice the tools or techniques that they have applied to their writing. Then have students share their takeaways with a partner, because they have a bunch of tools in their toolbox, guys. So we want to just make sure that they are really saying, oh, I already know how to do this because, and this is the point where you can see all the work you've done all year really come out in the kids. It's so awesome because you can go, oh my gosh, like even as a teacher, you may not remember, oh yeah, I did teach them to try that. And then they are really noticing what they're doing. And for those kids that are not participating, maybe not saying a lot, they are hearing their peers really talk about some of the things that are working for them. Okay, so they have flash draft on day 1 of this. So now on day 2, students will understand how to unpack the prompt. So we really want to make sure that they know how to do that. So looking on this one, today you will work with you as unpacking the prompt. Sorry, today students will work with you as you unpack the prompt. Tell students that when writing to a prompt, it is important to read the information carefully on the prompt page. Today you will be helping them do this work. So some of you may feel like, well, we did this before DBA 2, and that's great. So now remember, we are really spending time just getting ready for this test, okay? So choose a prompt for today's work. You may pick whatever one you want. We have the prompt packet, or you can create your own. Show the students a star prompt, point out all the parts of the prompt. And you'll see over on the side, it says to make an anchor chart to help students understand how to read and move through the prompt. So here's where one of those anchor charts really comes in. You could have it made in advance. You can make it with them. If you need to make a digital copy because you've got kids online, I would make it as a PDF that you can put into their Canvas, okay? So it's very important that they spend time making sure that they understand what the test is asking before they begin. And so you're going to really talk to them, walking them through the process, orally rehearsing your thinking as you talk through the prompt and create a central idea. Then check your central idea against that prompt. So this piece, you're really kind of showing them exactly as an adult how you work through that so that they can recreate it. And then have the partners orally rehearse reasons that could be used to support that central idea and share some examples. So here's your active engagement. Have students move through the steps, beginning with reading the prompt and talking with their partners about it. So what you just modeled, you want them to now recreate, because they're the ones that are going to have to do it, okay? And then have them determine if the central idea you have created met the demands of the prompt, and think aloud about how you might check your work. So you're going to have them do all of this, and then they're going to go out and they're going to do that work. Okay. Now that students have orally rehearsed their essay, send them off to write their essay. They can pick from the 2 boxes and bullets examples you have made as a class. Give them no more than 15 minutes to flash draft. Encourage them to write. So again, guys, like, timing is important. If you look at it and you're like, there is no way in this writing block I can give them 15 minutes, we talk too much, make part of your charts ahead of time, okay? Or put your central idea on sticky notes ahead of time. Then you're just doing the thinking part, not the writing part. And then put that up. Talk to them, put it up. When I went to New York for the training for units of study, they did that a lot to save time, is to have things pre-written that they could just show. And I did that in my classroom as well. I would have parts of it already written that I could just show them on the document camera to save the time from the writing process itself, okay? That is going to really help. And again, you're going to encourage them as they work. Have students at the end for the share, have students work with their partner to check that they were answering the prompt. So this is a good check for them, that they are not just saying that they did it. They have, a lot of times for teachers, the kids kind of go, yeah, you said that. But when it's their friend or someone else that they know that's telling them, it makes a huge impact on them. So, and then it says students should think about themselves as the scorer of the test and ask themselves, is this paper meeting the requirements of the prompt? Okay, so that's really powerful as well. Is this going to score a 2 or higher? Okay, are we doing what we need to do? All right, so that's day 2. I'm not going to go through every one of these. They're unpacking the prompt again, so you can see your chart still up there. Okay, and then let's go to, okay, so when we get to session 4, students practice creating strong introductions. Today, students will work to make sure that they have strong introductions to their essay. They will use one of the plans from the day before to write. So they had made a plan. Now you're going to use that. So they might want to just have a folder for these units, or for your test prep unit with all their writing in it. So this is the model piece. Write about a place you enjoyed visiting and explain why that place is important to you. And here's your teaching point. Today I want to teach you that opinion writers, which is expository, so you can change that language out if you don't want to use opinion writers, want to make sure that they start their paper off on the right track to make sure the paper will answer the prompt. Share the prompt, then share this fictional student lead. Now, if you do not like this one and you want to create your own, go for it. So I'm trying to give you some examples, but obviously you might want to do something different. So the prompt was write about a place you enjoy visiting, explain why that place is important to you. And here's the fictional lead. My treehouse is a place I enjoy visiting because I can hang out with my friends. And then it goes on, right? Explain that the student was following the plan and reread the prompt and then their introduction and tried a second time. So, that may not have been strong enough. So now they're going to go back and do the same work. So you're showing and modeling to them how they might change it. So now it says, my treehouse is a place I enjoy visiting because I can hang out with my friends. And then we go into a little bit different of a paper. So it's a little bit of change from the first one. Sorry. My treehouse is a place I enjoy visiting because I can hang out with my friends. 2 years ago, my dad and I decided we would build a tree house and a big oak tree in my backyard. My friends came over and helped me build the tree house. And now, and I think it doesn't show, I think I did it in different colors on the other, but it's a PDF. My tree house is a place I enjoy visiting because I can hang out with my friends. On Friday nights, my best friends come over and we hang out in the tree house playing board games and eating junk food. Sometimes when the weather is good, my parents allow my friends and I to sleep in the tree house. I love spending time in my tree house because it's a great place to hang out with my friends. So you can notice it says discuss with students how this student had changed up the introduction to make sure the paper stayed on track, because the first time it moved into like building it, and this time it stayed on track with friends. So now we're going to ask the students. Students will now look at the prompt they are planned from yesterday and give them a minute to pick the prompt and the plan that they feel that they can best answer. Okay, so this time it says give them 20 minutes to draft an essay. So when we look at this plan, you'll want to just kind of copy and paste these 2 pieces, examples of how the kid changed it, maybe onto a bigger document so the kids can see it. You could handwrite it if you want. I would probably just copy and paste it so that you're not spending a bunch of time on that. And then you'd want it done in advance. So this is where that whole doing some of that in advance will help them. So you're really modeling how that part of the process works of coming up with a plan, writing, rereading, and making sure it stays on track. Okay, on this one, they're revising their essay for a stronger structure and transition. So we know transitions can be difficult for kids. So we have another chart, right? an answer to the prompt, and then we have some different different ways they can do that. So we want to make sure, write an answer to the prompt is going to be because, a time when, write your topic sentence and repeat your reason, tell a time this happened. Examples might be mini story and a list. And then they're going to repeat for their second. Okay, and here's the transition chart down here with a bunch of them. So, and then it says show a sample paper prepared before class. So you're going to really want to have something that has some of those transitions, whether you're borrowing from Fourscore papers from STAR, from their from their examples. You can definitely pull from there if you'd rather, or you can make your own. Okay, so as you can see, we're really working on some different pieces, but it is fast paced. They're going to revise their essay with adding strong details. So this one really goes into those details that we want to make sure we have. Okay, so it is extremely important that you kind of look through them because it does move pretty quick. And then when we get to session 7, you'll see students will use all that they have learned about writing to write to a new prompt. Okay, so we're going to ask them to really go ahead and do a new one, and you can see where they're at in the process. And I know I'm going quickly because this is all found in your curriculum. I just want to give you kind of an idea of what you're going to be covering. Session 8 is when you're going to be looking at checklists to check their work. Okay, many of them are going to be familiar with that already, but you want to make sure that they really understand how they're going to be graded. On session 9, students will increase the level of their essay through stronger planning. Okay, so let's look at this one really quickly. You want students to feel that they are really prepared for the upcoming test, and the energy in your room should get students excited for the next lesson. Tell them you enjoyed writing to essays even when you aren't in the room, and you want to share some planning with them. So you're going to use the same, remind students that you're following that same steps. Okay, so your anchor chart's still up. Then read the prompt and show them your plan. Make some predictable mistakes that you are seeing students are making in their planning. So you want to kind of look at what they're doing, and then you do that same thing so that you have that piece for them. Have students help you look at your plan and decide if you are meeting the needs of the prompt, and have students help you correct your plan. So that anchor chart that's on the right side over here, this piece is so important because you want them to really ingrain that in themselves of this is how you do it, so that when they are looking at yours, they go back to that poster and say, oh no, Ms. Burrow, we have to do this, this, and this, okay? So you're going to have them help you. Think aloud as you try to orally rehearse your paper, and talk to students about how this process allows you to test out your plan. Okay, so you want to really test it out, because we know that once they start writing, it is a rare occasion when students will start over, right? So we want to make sure we give them that. Make sure at least one example doesn't work in your plan as you orally rehearse your paper. This will allow you to model how to make sure your plan is clear, okay? So you want to do it wrong so that you can show them how to do it right. So you start and you may be off, and you'd be like, oh, wait, look at the prompt. Is that going to work, boys and girls? And they're going to be like, no, that won't work. Why? Because it doesn't do this. So you want them to kind of guide you, because we want them to start teaching you, or, practicing that process. So active engagement, show them their prompt for the day, have them make a plan and predict their central idea and first reason with their partner. Encourage students to strengthen their plan. And then have students flash draft their introduction and the first reason using all they know. Then remind them that orally rehearse their second reason before writing that reason and concluding their paper. So this time we're kind of breaking it up a little different. They're orally rehearsing the beginning, and then they're flash drafting, and then they orally rehearse their second reason, then flash draft, okay? and then have students work with their checklist to see what they could still improve in their writing. So we want to make that, we're really giving them some ownership. Okay. All right, students will work on including mini stories. So again, we want to really make sure that we're hitting it correctly. So you can see down here, we've got some questions for them. Look at your paper you wrote, have students evaluate your writing, have them think about the following things. Is it a story? Did I keep the story in sequence? Did I include dialogue? Did I include details? Does the story fit the central idea? Okay. And we know that we want to keep it short. We do not want it to overdo the paper. We want to keep it pretty short. So make sure that when you're creating that, you're doing a very mini story, right? Have students review one of their mini stories to make sure that they are keeping with that same piece. Session 12, eliminate unnecessary information and details. This is where you may be looking at one where they've really added too much to their story and you're wanting to cut out things that they don't need, right? So I have an example in here so that you can use that one if you want. If you do not like that example, you will want to create your own, but kind of read through why you would remove parts. So let me look at what I had written here. It has been a while since I wrote it. It says, eliminating details that don't support your claim. Okay, and I have seen kids do this so often. So I think dogs are the best pet. I think dogs are the best pet because they are loyal animals who love you no matter what. I think dogs are the best pet because they can learn a lot of tricks like fetching and rolling over. Now, there's part in here where it should not be included if I'm talking about them being loyal and great. Down at the bottom, and I know we've seen this from kids, sometimes Chaz will bite strangers, so don't just try to pet him. Now, that may be a true statement, but that is not appropriate if we're talking about them being the best pet. So that's where you're going to be like, should we include that if we're trying to read that prompt to make sure all our information is supporting it? And hopefully they say, no, we don't want to include that. Okay, so that's something that they really do often. They're trying to fill in that space and they're putting things in that may be true but don't support their claim. And then we have thoughtful conclusions. So here's another chart. Are we ending with a heart moment? I realize that when blank, I feel this makes me think or feel this is important because, or a shout out, other people should care about. This should be important to others because. Now, those are not the only ways to conclude, but if you look at examples, those are two that definitely help with a conclusion. Okay, and then they're going to continue working on thoughtful conclusions here. And this one, students will work through stations where they will review various samples that show great moves and revise papers to mimic those types of moves. So this one may take a little bit of thought on how you want to do that, especially this with what's going on this year. Okay. And then students will celebrate their growth. So we have 16 sessions. That's, 3 weeks of just writing real in-depth pieces. So I hope that kind of helped you see it is quick, but at this point, when we think about everything they've learned, the kids have done boxes and bullets, which was our expository. Then they went on to literary essay, which is still expository. Then they went back to boxes and bullets, Texas style, which is still expository, and now we're in test prep. So this material, they have done a lot. They've done it in some different ways, but they have done so much of it. So at this point, really, you're just diving into those pieces that you've seen. So when you kind of look through all of those lessons, you may come up with one where you're like, I don't really need this. After the DBA, what I need is this, okay? So you may end up having to change out one or two of those lessons, but I would really encourage you to take the time to take all of those lessons and really go through them. I know I went through them pretty quick on this, but really go through them yourself to determine, like, is this the best for my kids? I really feel like having them read through that, the prompt, understanding the prompt, making sure that their writing is matching the prompt. Some of those pieces that are in there are extremely important to the best writing that the kids can do. So we want to make sure that we don't disregard it. And we don't want to spend a week on a piece. They won't get to spend a week writing one piece on the test. So we really want to make sure that they can flash draft and practice the skills that they need for the test and getting their writing muscles moving, okay? So the other part of preparing for the STAR test is going to be the editing and revising. And I know I've talked about it quite a bit. I have worked with hundreds of students, maybe more than hundreds, maybe thousands of students on this over the years. And this process of using Editor's Eyes was so successful for every student in my class. And when we look at that, it could be a student that had dyslexia, was resource, was gen ed, was gifted. It didn't, like, the spectrum did not matter. This process really works. So you will see in your curriculum that we have included things that look like this. It says teacher STAR-like questions, STAR writing techniques, grammar review PDF. All of these pieces become extremely important if you are struggling with it, if you're looking for, like, I've tried everything and it's still not working. So I'm going to share a little bit of this, but know that this, again, is in your curriculum and is there for your use. Okay, so when we open up the first one, resources for revising, 4.11C is revising questions. You will see that I have, and these are not beautiful, guys. I apologize, but I really wanted to get these out last year to you. So if your students ask to combine sentences, I have a video here that kind of shows you how I would have modeled it with my students and the rules. So the rules to combining sentences, there are 3. I would put a poster up and really help the kids understand these 3 rules, because these are easy ways for them to eliminate problems. So when they have to combine, when the STAR test says, how should these 2 sentences be combined? Here's the rules. The combined sentences must keep the author's original meaning. We can't change the meaning of what they were trying to say. The combined sentences must be grammatically correct. So now we're back to Editor's Eyes for that part. The combined sentences should not repeat phrases that could be combined in some way. So not words like and the, but if they were writing a sentence about goodwill, we shouldn't have to say goodwill twice or 3 times in the sentence. We should be able to combine the sentences in such a way that we're not repeating, okay? So it's very helpful for the kids to understand those 3 rules. What I have seen when I've worked in classrooms with kids that had not been introduced to this, and then you show them this, is excitement about being able to look at these sentences and really start working through it. So what I usually do is ask them to read the original sentences, and then the first thing I say is read all the choices and see if the original meaning is kept. If it's not, eliminate it. Now we've got 1 gone, or maybe 2 if we're lucky. Then we look through and say, are they repeating things that shouldn't be repeated? Eliminate it. And then you're down to 2 choices, and now you're looking for the grammar. And you're really inviting kids to use what they know about editing and sentence structure and figuring it out that way. And it's just like the students lighten so much. You could just see them feeling so much better because they have a way to look at these sentences that can be overwhelming to them otherwise. So there is a video there for you. It's not designed to show to the kids, but it's designed to show to you so you can do that same work. So I have it written out here. You can see I've done my work on the side. So it's kind of written out as well, but there is also a video. Revising a sentence, again, it looks like it's different, but the rules are the same. Okay, so again, you've got that. And then inserting a sentence or transition, I have 2 videos there for that to help you kind of understand how that might work. Okay. Okay, so going through that process and eliminating extraneous sentences. So, and then I have some sample questions there that you can use as a model if you want. So we do have those pieces in there for you to use with your students for revising. It is empowering to the kids. Here's a little poster you can put up, or you can snip this and put it on your Canvas classroom page for the kids. Okay, so it is there. Okay, on this next one, these are really written out directions for using editor's eyes. And it goes through the whole process for editing and the revising. So it's like, your first step is to read the passage for content. The kids never need a pencil in their hand when they first start. They always need to read the whole thing. It takes time, but it does definitely help them understand. And then they go to the questions and they circle sentences that have questions. So if there's a question about sentence 2 and 5 and 8 and 12, they should circle the numbers next to those. Then they're going to go through, and on each of those, they're going to use that editing order. So they're going to check for capitalization, and they need to look at each word. Then they check the punctuation when they get to the end, reread for usage. We've talked about this, and I apologize for those that have been using it. Look for commonly misspelled words or homophones. Look at the sentence for fanboys to determine commas. Look for contractions, apostrophes, abbreviations, and make changes in the sentence. 1 mistake per sentence is what STAR will give them, which is always nice, especially when it comes to maybe it's a capitalization error. As soon as they find it, they're done. And then when they go to answer the questions, they need to use the passage to identify which answer choice, not look at answer choices to determine what the mistake was. Those answer choices are designed to be distractors. So if the kid already knows that the mistake in the sentence was the wrong there, and they have highlighted it, they've written it, they know they are not even going to look at other answer choices that would distract them because they know what the answer is. It's really a powerful piece for the kids to know this is the mistake, go find it. Oh yes, that's B. Okay. But when they look at answer choices to determine what the mistake was, that's where we start having more problems because kids are guessing instead of knowing. And then of course the revising piece. So it's just, this information is provided to you as another resource within your materials. It's in the curriculum and embedded for you. Okay. All right. And this last piece, the grammar review, was from Writing DBA 1. This was sent out by LaDonna, reviewing some of the things that the kids missed. I know many of you have probably looked at this document, but I want to make sure for teachers that might not have, might have gotten lost in your email. Okay, so when we look at this, combining sentences, each one of these is a link. So BrainPop has a run-on sentence piece. There's a review and a quiz that you can give the kids. This could be a station, something like that for them. Sentences and structure, inserting sentences, organizing, and so on. And all of these are linked. Homophones, there are a lot of them. And when you look at how the STAR test has done it, they have some favorites, but they have a lot of ones that are not as common. So it's really important that we don't just focus on just a couple, but we did have some pieces where it's versus it's, and they're there and there. So you can see that this has a little video here for them to watch in case they're still stuck on it, they're still struggling with it. Remember, we have all of those PowerPoints and the curriculum on homophones that have a ton of different ones, usually with a, bear and bear. They'll have visuals if possible to help them. There's notes on there. So hopefully, as you've been going through the year, you've been covering that with the kids. When you see it in their writing or you see that they need that structure, don't do all of them at the same time, but I would hit those high points, the ones that you're seeing that they're really struggling with. So there are a lot of them in there, but you don't need all of them at one time. You might just cover, one each morning with the kids, just that one slide and talk to them about it. Maybe you hang a poster up, I don't know, whatever you think is appropriate. So homophones is just an interesting little thing. They love to throw that in on the kids. And sometimes it can catch them when they're not sure. Okay, so we want to just make sure that we're providing that instruction and covering those with the kids. Okay, and the last part on this is that we do have short cycle assessments that are also available and aware for you. So just know that we have put some of them in. They're not different. They are the same ones. I have used every resource I've had, and I've had to make quite a few to make sure that we have enough practice for you guys so you feel comfortable giving them some practice after you've been doing all that great teaching on patterns of power and in their writing. And now it's like, what does it look like for a test? Okay. So it is in there. And if it's in there, it's noted that it's in there. And so it's the same PDF and it's named the same thing. So if you're like, but I can't see it, just look at the name. If it says 451 in the curriculum, it's going to be labeled 451 in AWARE so that you can see those two pieces are the same. Short cycle assessments are there to help support you as you've taught everything and now you want to assess if they can do it. It's not a pre-test. So it's an assessment after, we've already taught it. And then once you have looked at it and you can determine what the kids are still missing, that's when you're really using your great teaching models to go back and review those things that they don't understand. When I do my PDSA cycle, I would pull up a question that maybe, I felt like I had taught it really well to the kids, and we get to that question and everybody picked A instead of C. And I was like, I'm not sure why they missed it. I might pull that question up and just ask them, what was it about this question that confused you, that you didn't know that grammar rule or that revising technique? And the kids usually had some really good insights for us on why that was, or for me at least, and they would explain it to me. And so then I could do either a very quick 2-minute reteach right there in the moment and explain that and know that they were ready. Or if it was something where I was like, wow, I really didn't cover that the way I needed to with the kids, I'm going to have to go back and do that later. I would just tell them, we'll cover it tomorrow or the next day to make sure that I can do it justice, to make sure that you're ready for that type of a question. So don't be afraid to ask them after you do that, what is causing the breakdown between what you've taught them and how they're answering the question. Other times it might be that they're not using editor's eyes. They're not using that technique effectively. So I kind of made a contract with my kids. It wasn't written, but I said, I'm going to give you the best strategies and techniques I have that I think will work, but it's your responsibility to effectively use them, meaning every time. I said, and if I give it to you and teach it to you and you use it every time and it doesn't work for you, I will find another way to teach it to you. And the kids were very eager to take that challenge on. So they were like, yes, we will do that. And I was like, great. So then if a kid came up and they missed a question, and I was going over a short cycle assessment and say, okay, you missed the first question, which was sentence number 4. Show me how you work through editor's eyes. I'm going to stand here and watch you. What's the first thing you do? And they'd be like, read the sentence. I said, great, read it to me. What's the next thing you do? And I'd make them walk through those steps. And sure enough, they usually found the mistake and go, oh, there it is. I said, great. So is that strategy really working for you? And they're like, yes, I just didn't slow down, or I skipped that, or, they usually had a reason. And so, when they were held accountable, and if they were still missing it, that's when I would be able to say, okay, what is happening? And sometimes the kids have such amazing thought processes. They might say, I'm really bad at finding spelling mistakes. I just really struggle with it. And so then you can make a plan with that kid of, okay, so if you know that that's the one thing that you really struggle to see in a sentence, when you get to the answer, if you didn't find any mistakes and you get to the answer choices and that is an option, what are you going to do? And they're like, oh, I'm going to really look at that. Maybe it is a spelling mistake and I just didn't catch it. Great. So you kind of, those are individualized for those students that really need it. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but I'm very passionate about this. All right. So then once you're done with STAR, you're moving into poetry. You have 10 sessions on that. So we want the kids to see poets bring different points of view to a topic. Poets share feelings with their reader using craft moves. Students will read poems using poets' eyes. So we really want them to look at it like the poets would. Poets anchor their poems using small objects with strong emotional connections. You're going to want to bring something in that's meaningful to you. Maybe an heirloom, a picture of a family member, something that's important to you. Probably not your cell phone. I mean, I think that, we know that technology is important to us, but if you can come up with something that's a little bit more personal for that lesson, that would be great. Editing poems for spelling. Word choice matters in poetry, so you're going to really work on that word choice with them. Poets repeat lines, sounds, images, and create rhythm, sound, and music with their poems, and poets create mood in their poetry. So you've got a bunch of different things that you're really going to work with them on. I do not pick the poems for you, so just so you understand that when it comes to those poems, you're going to pick out which ones you want. I think poetry is such a personal thing that we want that to happen. And that's the only way to do that is through allowing you to pick the poems. Okay, your code word, if we are still doing those, I'm not sure, but I want to make sure you have it in there, is flowers. So I hope that this helped. If you have questions between now and STAR, please feel free to reach out to me, email me. Let me know if you have anything that you need. I am here to support you. I know you guys have been working so hard this year on writing and really want to make sure that the kids are prepared for the test and feel comfortable with it. So let me know how I can help. And then just remember that you've got your patterns of power, that's your grammar. You're exposing to the kids to some great focus phrases and examples of good writing. Then you're doing those great mini lessons. You're giving them tips and strategies and tools for their independent writing. They're going to practice that during independent writing, especially during that STAR prep unit. You really want them to get that time in. And then you'll conference with students looking for patterns that show that they're able to transfer what you're teaching, really walking around and getting your steps in while you're watching and seeing how they're growing, getting ready for that test. And then evaluating their writing, conferencing with students. I know a lot of people have talked to me about how they've really gotten those conferences down. They're really working with the students and talking to them about their writing, and know that that conferencing time sometimes is the most powerful piece you're going to give the kids. And then, of course, you're going to evaluate the writing to determine what needs to happen next. Okay. Thank you for your time. I hope that this was helpful. And again, if you need me for anything, please let me know. I am here to support you.